very bold energy solution in smart cities. So
yes.
Just go.
Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to speak about the energy aspect of the smart city concept, which from my point of view is one of the key aspects of the whole concept. The urban growth has accelerated significantly in recent 100 years. But recently, we have two new tendencies of urban growth that were not present earlier. First of all, when someone spoke about the urban growth, like 10 years, 20 years before, the first thing that came in mind was the concept of megacities. Now we're talking about the urbanization of the rural areas, especially in the emerging or middle income countries. So as you can see from the last statistics presented by United Nations, the biggest part of the urban population is expected to be concentrated not in megacities as it can be expected, but in the cities with a population less than 500,000 inhabitants. For my presentation, this is the key detail that we have to remember, because the concept of smart cities is strongly connected and it is more realizable, we can say, in the small cities, in the small urban areas, because from the economic point of view and from the point of view of the costs, it is much more real, the concepts of smart cities in small urban areas. So the next tendency is the huge environmental impact of the urbanization in the recent years. So in the beginning of the 19th century, for example, the urbanization was associated with the progress, technological progress, and also the improvement of the living conditions. Now we're talking about sometimes uncontrolled growth of urban population, especially in the emerging countries. And we talk about the horrible living conditions and enormous environmental impact. This environmental impact is strongly connected for the energy demand. If you can see from as you can see from this slide, the 75% of global CO2 emissions is provoked by cities, and the energy sector remains still the most carbon demand sector. It has the huge impact on the environment. Still, respect to all the other sectors, including industry. So we're talking about the energy issue first of all, to be resolved. The huge environmental impact is provoked, of course, by megacities. So as you can see from this chart, the biggest carbon footprint belongs to rich cities, to economically developed cities, as we can say, and not for the cities of emerging countries. By the late report of World Energy Council, the energy demand is still expected to grow, and significantly, especially in Central Asia and in Asian countries in general. Of course, because of the high rate of urbanization and industrialization in these countries. All these concepts provoke, of course, huge risks and pose huge risks to the environment. First of all, from my point of view, the concept of smart cities can address a lot of sustainable development goals of Agenda 2013. But today, of course, we will concentrate on climate action and sustainable cities, of course. I would not lose your time on this slide dedicated to the international cooperation, but here, the most important decades are represented and the most important organizations are represented, because nowadays the successful urbanization and the transformation towards sustainable cities is impossible without an international cooperation, of course. And also the concept of smart cities is strongly promoted by the international cooperation in the urban sector. Talking about the concept of smart cities, which was addressed also by the previous speakers. I would like to concentrate on the technical aspect, first of all, because when we're talking about the smart city, we should have present three foundations, such as information and communication technology, Internet of Things, and big data. So the main difference between the smart city and the traditional city is the data sector, like the digital straight. Between the services and infrastructure. This changes significantly the whole strategy of the urban planning and the city in general. So the concept of smart city can be categorized in three groups, I would rather say. Like from the beginning, it was born like a commercial product, led by IT giants, the companies such as IBM and Cisco Kinetic, for example. And of course, it was addressed by the scientific sector as a huge threat for the humanity, because being a commercial product, it did not include the human values and also the environmental issues. But still, with the years, we can see a noticeable transformation from the commercial product to the human concept. So the citizens of the city are becoming the key players of the whole concept, and from consumers, they're becoming also prosumers. So the ones who also produce and make their contribute to the whole concept. That's why the environmental issues have become very important in the concept. So going to concrete considerations, I would like to speak about two main concepts, such as smart grid and smart home, that address the energy issues inside the smart city concept. Talking about the smart grid, we're talking about the decentralized energy distribution that changes the whole concept of the energy distribution at all. So the main problems that are faced by the alternative energy sector for nowadays, there are two of them. The first one is the impossibility to count the small amount of energy, for example, produced by solar panels of single households, or the energy produced by the small wind plants or hydro plants. In the scale of a big city, it is very difficult to include all the energy produced by the small households in the whole grid. But the concept of smart grid that is described on this and this scheme permits the decentralized distributions and permits to include the small quantity of energy also in the whole grid, and it changes significantly the whole perspective. So being a flexible system, a smart grid provides the use of energy from different sources at the same time. So we're talking about the huge flexibility in the whole grid, and about the possibility to include the single households who from consumers of the energy can become also prosumers of the energy. So for example, the system that was implemented in Italy by the company Enel permits the single households to emit the non-consumed energy back to grid, reducing also the costs of the energy storage, which is the second main issue of the alternative energy sectors for nowadays. The energy storage is a huge problem, for example, for wind energy, because the energy produced by wind plants is really unstable. That's why it is important to have a very powerful batteries on the stations that of course are very costly and very pricey nowadays. The smart grid permits to emit the energy produced back to grid instantly. That's why it reduces a lot the costs of energy storage. So in this way, the concept of smart grid, which is a part of the concept of smart city, addresses two main issues of alternative energy. Another concept about which I would like to talk is the concept of smart home and smart building, which are like similar but not the same. Talking about the buildings, of course, we are talking about the heating issue, which is still like almost 50% of heating also inside the European Union. Unfortunately, is still coming from fossil fuels. So we are still talking about the huge environmental impact of the single households. That's why it is very important to implement the technologies of thermal insulation and thermal heating and smart heating cooling systems. For example, in this slide, I would like to present you the smart cooling and heating system implemented in the city of Copenhagen, where the buildings are heated by the single small plants, heating plants, in spite of the huge centralized plants for which we are more like which are more used nowadays in the big cities. The heating system is distributed. For example, there is one school which produces the heating powerful, and then it distributes the heating to the nearest buildings. And the cooling system is even more innovative, because for the cooling, the sea water is used. So by it comes to the single households by the tubes, which are all located under the surface, and the cooling like the cooling is affected. Then talking about the thermal insulation, it is important to mention some specific materials, building materials, that permit to reduce the solar heating effect. It can be implemented on the roof, or maybe power saving windows. So different technologies that permit to maintain the cool temperature inside the building in the hot period. And of course, we're talking about the smart home concept, which is strongly connected to the ICTs and IoT technologies that permit the decentralized distribution of the energy inside the building, and that permit also to reduce significantly the energy consumption inside the single households, regulating the lighting, and other elements. So talking about the conclusions,